Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. We've got you covered. Traditional leagues, dynasty leagues, PPR leagues, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
What is up? Welcome into the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. It is a Thursday, and I'm your host, Tom Dougherty. Of course, this podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Today, we're going to be going position by position through these draft rankings, the consensus draft rankings. I use Fantasy Pros. I don't know what you guys use for your fantasy information or advice. FantasyPros.com is a great tool to use. There's a light version. Obviously, you can always pay for more advice and such. But on this, actually, when you do draft your team come the fall, you can actually sign in with your whatever fantasy site you use, and it'll import your roster and then give you some advice on it as well. And it'll even import it'll ask you which team you're playing, and it'll have all the teams in your league as well. And it'll be able to put you against their roster and give you the best matchups that you want for that week. But that's not until, obviously, you have your team all figured out. We have to figure out what team you want, and that's why we do these position-by-position draft talk. As in the first segment, we're going to do quarterbacks, second segment, running backs, third segment, receivers. Running backs might leak over to this third segment as well. And then the last segment, we'll do special team or defense and tight ends as well. So kind of spread it out through the whole show here. And then next week we'll do that top 50 or top 30 or whatever I do. I'll give myself the weekend to really hammer out those my own rankings that I like, how I like players figured out versus this way we're doing position by position versus overall. As we're going to start with the quarterbacks right now. This is kind of a consensus rankings. They take a bunch of different experts and put them all together. I'm obviously going to compare them off my own and give you my thoughts on what I think. They have Russell Wilson. I'm going to start right off the bat right now with the disagreement, because this is, I think I've talked about this before. I've talked about Russell Wilson a lot. I know I love Russ. He's a great player, great quarterback in the NFL, but he just does not have enough weapons. He can't do it enough himself. I get the volume is there. He's going to get the running yards. He's going to he'll get enough completions. But I just don't think the Seattle Seahawks offense is in a position right now where Russell Wilson can be deemed the second best quarterback in fantasy football. It's just crazy. Maybe it's just the fact that all these quarterbacks kind of get lumped up in the middle here. So it's Rodgers, Wilson, and Brady are the top three. That's the top tier. So I don't know. Deshaun Watson's number 4 right now underneath because of what he did in 4 games last year. So that goes to show you how fantasy can just get turned on its head so quickly. Cam Newton's the next, then Carson Wentz. I'd put Carson Wentz number 2. Maybe Carson Wentz gets dinged because of the injury, but why doesn't Deshaun Watson get dinged because of the injury? They're both coming back off of knee injuries. The same, almost exact. Is it both ACLs or something similar? They're knee injuries. They're both coming off knee injuries, and they're both in the top 6 of these quarterbacks. I don't know what to say here when it comes to what the heck are they talking about. If anything, if you don't really care about the injuries as far as done with Sean putting him number 4, then put Carson Wentz number 2. Or put Carson Wentz number 3. Do Brady, Rodgers, Wentz. That's what I would do. There's my top 3 right there. You just made it up in my head. Rodgers, Brady, Wentz. Rodgers, Wentz, Brady. As number 1 through 3. Rodgers, Wentz, Brady. Even though Rodgers also was hurt for most of the year last year. Obviously, Tom Brady winning the MVP was the most consistent quarterback in the NFL staying healthy. As we're looking at, obviously, Aaron Rodgers is number one right now. He's always going to be number one due to the potential for scoring. Obviously, continue looking down. Drew Brees, Kirk Cousins is on round out the top 8. I like Drew Brees a little higher. I still even put him higher than Cam. Cam's just not accurate enough. I think the fact that you're seeing Russell, Cam, and Deshaun all in the top 5 is the fact that they're putting a premium on these running quarterbacks. The fact that these guys can throw from the pocket, they can run, they're going to get the rushing yards, which I've always said are more valuable. So I do understand that part of it, but it's consistency based. Best ability is availability, especially in fantasy where you don't have to scramble and try and find a second option like I did last year when Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Fortunately, Ben Roethlisberger, who was sitting right there, actually, guess who I had instead of Aaron Rodgers last year? According to these, I had the 9th and 10th best quarterback as my second 2 options. Matthew Stafford's number 9, and Ben Roethlisberger is number 10. Matt Ryan is way down the list at 16, behind Garoppolo, Luck, Rivers, Goff, and Winston, which is kind of crazy. But I mean, all those guys, I'd probably put Matt Ryan up above at least 3 of those 5 guys I just said. I put Matt Ryan ahead of Jared Goff. I put him ahead of Luck right now because Luck, we don't know. He hasn't even thrown football in 2 years, it seems. Garoppolo, he's on we still haven't quite seen what he's done over longevity with his new team. Short term, it looks good. And then definitely above Jameis. Philip Rivers, okay, I actually like Philip Rivers. Philip Rivers is one of the most underrated fantasy players, I think, in a long time, if ever, because he just continues to put up numbers and numbers and numbers, and right now his roster is looking like he could be. I mean, the fact that he's a veteran quarterback, reads defenses very well, picks them apart very well, has a weird throwing motion, actually throws a very accurate ball, but I think he could be up in that closer to the top 10 with the roster he has right now. With Keenan Allen on that both, and then both the Benjamin or Travis Benjamin and the Williams all of his receivers. He has so many weapons. He has Hunter Henry is a great tight end. So I mean, he has a lot of weapons. The way their roster is right now, the Chargers roster is honestly top 5 roster. It could be even a top 3 roster in the NFL as a whole right now. But the only problem is they play in the AFC West, which is a tough division right now, with the Raiders trying to reload their roster, and then also the Chiefs still playing like they're destined to at least maybe get through one playoff game, but they always seem to shoot themselves in the foot like they did last year. Speaking of the quarterback there, Patrick Mahomes is rounding out tier 4. They put Dak as number 17. I'll tell you, these quarterbacks, honestly, the whole middle, like tier 3 and tier 4, can be all jumbled up, I think. The fact that you have Stafford and Roethlisberger maybe up that high is because of the veteran capabilities of it. Honestly, I like the fact, I think my new top 10 would be Rodgers, Wentz, Brady, Breeze, then Watson as number 5, then probably Kirk Cousins, then Cam because he can run. Yeah, that's a good thing of it. Then Cam at 7. 8 would be Ben Roethlisberger. Honestly, at 8, I like Ben Roethlisberger, and then Russell Wilson at 9. And then 10 would be Stafford. So that would be my top 10 right there, because I just think Russell Wilson, I think Russell Wilson's overrated in a fantasy aspect of it. I think that he's a Superman and he can get everything done by himself. I'd stay away from him. The guy that I played last year twice in a row, and in order to get to the playoffs or get through the playoffs and into the championship game, had to beat him once in the regular season to get into the playoffs in a position I wanted to. Then I had to play him again in the first round of the playoffs, and then in order to get to the final, because there was only one round of playoffs, but I played him twice in a row, and he had Russell Wilson as his quarterback, and he had 2 stinker games at the end of the year there that cost him his season, cost the guy his season, because Russell Wilson didn't do anything. And I helped that I had Todd Gurley, but I also beat him point by point. I probably can go look this up and see, if I really beat him straight up, heads up, with quarterbacks, because I bet you, in the last week of that season, Ben Roethlisberger probably scored more points than Russell Wilson did. You'll see if it'll give me last year's scores. Went away. It was there like a minute ago. But still, I'm telling you, straight up, I bet you Ben Roethlisberger and Matthew Stafford. But I think Russell Wilson, it was Yahoo League, so it's the scoring is a little different. But he maybe put up 19, 20. Ben probably put up 25. Just saying. I think Russell Wilson just gets... Yeah, his best ranking was 2, seventh, his 7 was the worst ranking of this consensus pick of 40 different experts. I put him around 7, 8, 9. That's my rankings. I think Drew Brees, Wentz, maybe even Cousins could be higher up than him when it comes to fantasy, especially looking out for this year, because look out for Kirk Cousins. I would not be upset if I had Kirk Cousins as my fantasy quarterback, because he just has so many options on that offense. He's going to have running backs to throw out of the backfield. He's going to have 2 great receivers. He's going to have a great Pro Bowl tight end to throw to. I mean, that him going to Minnesota is only going to help him fantasy-wise, which I think could sneak Kirk Cousins into that top 5 conversation when it comes to quarterbacks and drafting. So I'd draft Kirk Cousins before I drafted Russell Wilson. Absolutely. You got to have somebody to catch the ball. I mean, come on. You got to have somebody to catch the football for you. And who's Russell Wilson have to catch the ball? Who's his receivers? Doug Baldwin? That's it? Everybody else is gone. Curse is gone. Jimmy Graham is gone. Kirk Cousins has a team to throw the ball to. I take Drew Brees before Russell Wilson. Obviously, Drew Brees is a veteran Hall of Fame quarterback, and he has weapons. He has running backs to throw it to. He has Michael Thomas out there to throw it to. I don't know. They have Will Lutz. Oh no, Will Lutz is who's their? I don't know. The tight end for the Saints. Obviously, it doesn't really matter if he gets a guy who Colby Fleener. He's there. Throw it to. So I was thinking about Doug. They have Fleener. So I take Drew Brees before him. I take Carson Wentz before him. I take Kirk Cousins before him. I don't know about Deshaun, because those guys are all coming. The guys all coming off injuries. I'm not saying I'm not. That's just my preference. If you take him. Deshaun Watson, if he's healthy, he's going to be a great fantasy quarterback. Same with Carson Wentz. But those 2 guys coming off injuries are a little bit red flag for me, especially based off the fact that they're both mobile quarterbacks, and it's both a leg injury for them as well. As far as guys that may be a little bit underrated as well, Matt Ryan, I think, is still underrated. Andrew Luck might be a little overrated for the fact that he still hasn't thrown a quarter football yet. So I'd honestly flip-flop those guys. I'd put Luck down at 15, 16, and Ryan back up in the 11, 10 range. Jimmy Garoppolo actually gets a lot of love in this one, as he is sitting at number 11. The best ranking he had, though, was 4th, and the worst was 23rd. That's for somebody who obviously thinks that he needs to prove himself a little more, putting him down in 23rd in the league. But yeah, these quarterback rankings are pretty funny, because there's 60 quarterbacks that are rated on this one. EJ Manuel, obviously, because it includes all these backups. Sam Darnold's on here. Baker Mayfield. Josh, look at that. They have Lamar Jackson because he can run. It's the only big deal. He can run. So Lamar Jackson is actually rated higher than all the other rookie quarterbacks coming into the season, even though he probably won't play. Lamar Jackson is rated 3 spots lower than the guy he's backing up for right now. Teddy Bridgewater is rated only, what is that, 7 spots higher than Sam Darnold? That's funny. And you also got Josh McCown in there too, as Sam Darnold, another guy that Sam Darnold's only 5-6 spots away. I mean, this is all fantasy implications. I could just totally, I get it why Cam is in the top 5. I get why Deshaun's in the top 5. I get why they would think that Russell Wilson can be in the top 5, because they can run. And that's definitely a premium when it comes to quarterbacks in the NFL, because say like you're playing a guy who has your quarterback's receiver. That could be a detriment, obviously, to you, or if he throws a touchdown pass to that guy, you're both going to get points. It'll cancel out. But if you have a running quarterback, the percentage of the chance that this is going to happen, he could always just run the ball in, and then it's solely your points, and obviously you get more points for the running yards. So yeah, I get that. But Russell Wilson, overrated fantasy player of the century right now. And it looks like Drew Brees and Kirk Cousins are the most underrated, seemingly, by these rankings. So I've given you my new top 10 and told you who I think is overrated and underrated. So we'll come back and do the same thing with the running backs after the break. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back to GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. This is segment number 2, as we're going to do the running backs now. As we get into it here right now, I'm already seeing discrepancy. Todd Gurley is number 1 running back. I don't know about that. I get the reason why they'd put him up that high is because the Rams and their offense has finally clicked, and we figured out how good they're going to be. And Todd Gurley is going to magically be this great running back every single year. Well, here's the hoping so. Obviously, he's on my team, and he's still going to be on my team. He'll probably be my 3rd-round pick due to my keeper league. But I still think that he might not. There's guys that are better. I think there's guys that are worth taking higher than him. There's guys who have done it more years in a row. He's had one good season, really. One really, really good season. Le'Veon Bell has had like 3. Even Zeke with the shortened season last year, he's had 2 years in the NFL. They've both been really good. And Zeke has the offensive line to be able to do it really well every year as well. I think the Rams, their offense is just so versatile that Gurley could have games where he gets forgotten. I'm not saying he's obviously a top 5 pick. It's just that number 1 pick. It's like the NFL draft. Like, you have to be 100% sure this guy is going to be crazy productive this year in order to pick him as your. It's actually even more of a sure thing, because in the NFL, if you draft somebody number 1 like Baker Mayfield, he'll give him a couple years to grow and pop before he pops in the NFL. This is a one shot, one thing only kind of thing in fantasy football. You got to make your decision, and you got to hope it works this season. Like, you basically are picking, okay, this guy's going to have a great season. So honestly, based off of that, like, measuring stick, I don't know if they would put Zeke number 1. As much as I am, honestly, if I'm not going to get, that's going to show you how much of a homer I'm not. I'm not a Cowboys fan whatsoever. I've never been a Cowboys supporter whatsoever. I'm kind of disgusted by them, which was fine. They are an NFL team. I got to respect my NFL teams. But Ezekiel, they have a darn good running back, and his name is Ezekiel Elliott. And this season, he will be available for every single game. No court time, no NFL suspension hanging over his head. Nothing. So I would put him number 1. I don't know if you put Le'Veon number 2 and Zeke number 3, because Zeke number 1, Le'Veon number 2, Todd Gurley number 3, because I think that Zeke is just the way that offensive line works, the way he works in that offense with Dak Prescott being another young player who needs to have that running back to play off of, and they both make each other better. I think that sometimes you're gonna, if say Dak has a bad game, that offensive line can still mash, and they can still just run it down your throat at their own will. So definitely Ezekiel Elliott for me is number one. But I mean, these top 4 picks, all these top running backs will likely be the top 4 picks unless you want to throw Antonio Brown in there instead of taking David Johnson number 4. I mean, you can't go wrong. I mean, the only one I think is the most volatile is Todd Gurley, because you never know if he's going to progress this year. He had a crazy breakout season last year. Defenses adjust. Everything happens like that. I mean, he's in a great offensive system with Sean McVay and Jared Goff in LA. That's true, but you never know with these guys, and I think he just needs to have 1 or 2 more seasons of just like he did last year or close to it, where yes, okay, now you are definitely a top 1-2, pick him up, coin flip running back, because that's kind of how it is right now with Le'Veon and Ezekiel Elliott. It's a coin flip. Even though my problem with Le'Veon, my problem with Le'Veon Bell this season, though, is the clock going to finally strike midnight for Cinderella? This guy has been the most utilized, touches the ball the most amount of times, been tackled the most, been banged up the most. I mean, how many times can this guy just get whacked every single play and stay healthy? I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to do it. I'm not wishing anything on Le'Veon. I want him to stay healthy as long as he possibly can, because he's a great player. He's great for this league, but it's the NFL. It is a National Football League. There are some hard-hitting guys out there, and it's like Le'Veon's Cinderella, and he's kind of out there just waiting for the clock to strike midnight, and he pulls up lame with an ankle or a bruised quad or whatever, pulled something. It doesn't matter. Things happen out there, and he has been able to stay on the field for as much as he can. This is quite remarkable, and I just think that if you're a fantasy player or fantasy owner, the worst thing that ever happened for somebody that owned Le'Veon Bell was a suspension he had to take a couple of years back. So I think that if anything I was afraid of for when it comes to Le'Veon, it would definitely be regarding the injury bug that could be happening with him. Obviously, when it comes to difference between PPR and regular and standard, obviously it can jumble around a little bit. If you look at PPR right now, they do have Le'Veon as number 1. Zeke actually drops to number 4 because he doesn't catch the ball out of the backfield as much as Bell, Gurley, and David Johnson actually did when he was healthy a couple of years ago as well. So if you switch it to PPR, then Bell becomes number 1. So actually, if you are in PPR, Bell is the obvious choice as number 1. Regardless of, you could be worried about him taking injuries, having injuries, something like that, but it's just the upside is too great, and he's going to catch a bunch of balls out of the backfield. So is Gurley, honestly. So I think, that's accurate. If you switch it over to PPR, if you're thinking about PPR, I think Bell definitely number 1, Gurley number 2. David Johnson also catches a lot. It's also, you got to just look at the percentages or just the amount of catches. Look at the catches stats, just catches, not yards, anything, just receptions last year. And obviously you can extrapolate Zeke's numbers out. Go look at his rookie season. He's not really going to catch the ball out of the backfield all too much, maybe on a few screens throughout the game. He'll get some good yardage off of the screen pass, but as an escape safety valve, you expect him maybe to catch the ball out of the backfield more because of that whole safety valve idea for him and Dak, for him to be a security blanket for Dak. Use all these old different colloquialisms to help Dak Prescott out there, obviously, to be the guy that is going to be open on a regular basis, especially out of the backfield. But I guess Zeke just, I don't know, his hands aren't there, has trouble catching the ball sometimes, whatever it may be. Looking further down the list here, as we kind of talked about the top 3 for a while now. Obviously, David Johnson, everybody has their own opinion on him. He jumps right back into that top 4 spot, the number 4 spot, even though the thing is, for David, it wasn't a leg injury. It wasn't a leg injury. It wasn't like those quarterbacks who both had knees. It wasn't a knee for David. It wasn't an ankle. It wasn't a foot. It wasn't a quad. It was a wrist. It was his wrist. Obviously, ball security might be an issue this year. You're definitely going to have teams going right at his hands, right at his arms, trying to rip that ball out like they would anyways, but probably even stronger because of the fact that he's coming off this wrist injury. Or was it a hand? It was a hand-wrist injury for David Johnson. So his legs will just be I'm sure they'll be just fine. They'll be motoring just like normal, and he'll probably get up there. But I mean, that's the other thing, is that you have right behind him are two guys. I mean, are right behind him, David Johnson, are two guys who have done it, who had explosive years last year. Kareem Hunt and Alvin Kamara. Obviously, Hunt dropped off a little bit, and those are two guys now coming into their sophomore seasons in this league, and they might just have their stock drop a little bit due to the fact that the volatility, the unknown is there. They have not been able to do it consistently. Saquon Barkley, get out of the top 10. Get out of the top 10. We don't know what you can do. I've never been a Saquon Barkley lover, fanboy. I'm not a hater necessarily, but I'm not Saquon is the savior kind of guy. I think the Giants should have took Sam Darnold. Yeah, they would have missed on the best running back talent we've seen in a long time, but actually it hasn't been that long. It's been since Ezekiel Elliott came into the league 2 years ago, 2 full seasons ago. And then what's he done with Dallas? Oh, he's gotten suspended, and he drew along a whole legal debacle for a whole season, cost his team games late in the season. Honestly, I think what did they go 2-4 in the time without him? So they weren't completely lost, but they didn't have a winning record. That's for sure. I just think that this is a quarterback-driven league, and you missed on arguably the best quarterback in the draft, the Giants. So yeah, you took Saquon, and Saquon's sitting at number 7. I know it's a fantasy show, but Saquon's still sitting at 7 in these running back rankings. Get out of the top 10. We don't know what you can do. I'll take Dalvin Cook. That's the only person I would not take maybe ahead of you is Dalvin Cook, who's number 10 right now. I'd take LaShawn McCoy ahead of you. I'd take Melvin Gordon ahead of you. I'd take Leonard Fournette ahead of you. I don't know what you can do. You can have a good seat. Yeah, what if you pop? Great. Awesome. You don't, then I wasn't wrong. I don't know. I mean, the Giants, their offensive line, everything, you got to get that figured out. It's New York. It's tough. It's a microscope. You got to figure it out. It's going to be interesting, and I think that he might get popped in the mouth. I think if you look at running back stats carry over from college, the guy never. I mean, how many games did he average over 3 yards a carry? 1, 2, maybe 3. They compared him to Zeke and to Christian McCaffrey coming out of college. Christian McCaffrey and Zeke had better stats. Better longevity stats. Zeke, they showed games. There was games that he averaged less than or 3 yards a carry or less, and I think he had 10 games with 3 yards a carry or less. Zeke averaging for that's Saquon Barkley. Zeke had 1 game like that at Ohio State, and McCaffrey had 0 because he didn't even have a game where he averaged less than 4 yards a carry. The guy averaged 4 yards a carry or more every single game he played at Stanford, especially his last season. So I just Saquon, you're a big home run hitter guy. They've been saying, I know that these pundit guys have been saying you can be a bell cow guy. You can be a guy that sits in the backfield and is there every single down. I just don't see it. I don't see it whatsoever. I don't see it. I think he's going to get beat up. The Big Ten's great, yeah, but the NFC East is harder. I just don't see it. You can have Robert Irving or is it DeMarcus Lawrence and Irving from the Cowboys coming into the backfield and whacking you. You're going to have big, crazy, big safeties coming down and whacking you. I mean, these guys are men. Not that they're not playing against men in the Big Ten, but these guys are men. They've been in the league for a long time. I just think that he's going to get knocked in the mouth a couple times. Yeah, we've seen other things. Publications come out and say, Saquon, you have the biggest expectations, just like LeBron had expectations. Yeah, you do, because you got picked 2nd overall. Zeke didn't even get picked 2nd overall. I think Zeke was the 6th or 7th pick. Look at him now, top of my draft board. top of my draft board for fantasy. I love Leonard Fournette as a fantasy draft guy, especially for non-PPR. He's super valuable in the running game. Lots of short yardage plays by the goal line, gets in the end zone. Melvin Gordon's a little bit up in the air. He number 9. I put him right there at number 9, and Dalvin Cook number 10. That's probably right. I just put Zeke. I honestly shift everybody up. Put McCoy is number 10, Zeke, and put Saquon at 11 because the NFL running backs. I think Jordan Howard gets kind of shafted, honestly, right now, maybe because the Bears' offense is going to be good. I honestly throw Jordan Howard up in the top 10 because he's that good. These two, Kamara obviously has moved it around a lot because of the fact that he had a great season last year, but you never know how these guys are going to back up great years. These sophomore slumps are real, and we have three guys that are coming into their sophomore season. That's McCaffrey, Kamara, and Hunt. Dalvin Cook also is coming off an injury as well, so you don't know how he's going to come back. He could definitely slide down that board as well coming through training camp. We'll have to do this probably again as we come closer to everybody's draft day. So this is just right now looking at it in mid-May. All right, we'll come back with the wide receivers on the other side of the break, so stay tuned. We'll be back in just a second.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA Podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Segment number 3 is we're going to do the wide receivers now. Final segment, we'll do the tight ends and some defenses. Wide receiver, kind of a interesting position in fantasy football. Obviously, running backs are great because it's kind of all on them. They get handed the ball and they get the yardage they get, and then it's all on them. Receivers, though, have to catch the ball from a quarterback. So I definitely factor in who these guys are going to be, who these guys have thrown to them into account very much. So the top 3, Brown, Hopkins, and ODB, or OBJ, however you want to say it, Odell Beckham. I think Odell Beckham's overrated. I don't like who throws to him. I think Eli feels pressure to throw to him more than he should because Odell wants to get his touches earlier, or he'll start whining on the sideline, which is a great quality to have as a running back. But I mean as a receiver, by the way, isn't it? My favorite receiver is Michael Thomas out of New Orleans. I think Michael Thomas is right now he's number 5. If you put it on PPR, he's number 4. I agree with that for sure. Probably I put him up higher. I put him above Odell. Odell's injury prone. He's small. He's has small legs, skinny leg boy, and he's flat. He's just all mouth. He got into a altercation with the kicking net last year. He's got some issues. Had some issues in the offseason with some pictures and videos that were taken when he was overseas. That's a different conversation. This is a fantasy show, but I think Odell Beckham, he puts up the numbers, but he does not help his team win. So I guess if you don't care about that, which you probably shouldn't because not everybody out there is a Giants fan, I'm not, but I just like seeing good football, and Odell Beckham sometimes just leads to bad showings on the football field, even though he's very talented. But a guy coming back from injury should not be that high, and I would not put him that high whatsoever. I definitely would put him behind Michael Thomas for sure, and possibly behind Julio as well. Only problem with Julio is that they think he might have lost a step and he's going to get doubled. He gets doubled too many times because Atlanta. I mean, I don't know why he gets doubled so much. Atlanta has other weapons. They have Sanu. They have now. They'll have Calvin Ridley. So I mean, I know they lose Taylor Gabriel, but who is a big weapon for them. But I like Julio too. So I mean, right now Julio, Michael Thomas, and AJ Green top or 4 through 6. Then Keenan Allen. I like Keenan Allen. AJ Green needs to stay on the field, not get suspended. Also needs to stay healthy. I like Keenan Allen a lot because he has Phillip Rivers and they have a lot of weapons there. Honestly, I think Keenan Allen as fantasy wise, talent wise, I like AJ Green and himself. But AJ Green has Andy Dalton thrown to him. I know they have a good deal of chemistry, but Andy Dalton is still Andy Dalton, and Keenan Allen has Phillip Rivers, who I love, and I think that would definitely leapfrog Keenan Allen up above AJ Green in my list for sure. Devontae Adams gets up there, maybe solely because he has Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback, but I mean, rightfully so. He's going to be the number one option for Rodgers this season. No more Jordy Nelson in Green Bay. They obviously get Jimmy Graham. Obviously, that's a tight end, but it's going to be another option in the passing game for A-Raj. But I like Devontae Adams. Always been a nice option for Rodgers there in the Green Bay, as he's a good route runner, gets through that secondary well, and also a good pass catcher. So I love Devontae Adams. Doug Baldwin rounds at the top 10. Tyreek Hill is right behind him at number 11. Then Thielen. That's kind of a joke. That's how much these guys love Russell Wilson. And maybe the fact that I guess, yes, I understand. There's another reason why I understand Baldwin being up there as in the top 10 is because who else is going to catch balls for the Seattle Seahawks? I'd stay away from Doug Baldwin. I think he's way overrated. I think that whole offense next year for the Seahawks is going to be really weird. They have a rookie running back. Obviously, Russell Wilson is a very good quarterback and a Hall of Fame quarterback back there, but I just think that he's not going to have their offensive line has always been shaky. He's going to be running around for his dear life. One thing is he does make plays on the fly, and him and Doug Baldwin do have a good chemistry for sure when it comes to getting open. So maybe that's what these guys like and why they're putting him so high. I just think Tyreek Hill and both Adam Thielen and Tyreek Hill can be so explosive, and their offenses are just leaps and bounds. As their team offense, the team offense is just leaps and bounds better than the Seattle offense for both Minnesota and Kansas City. So I just think that in turn will help both those guys just get more points in general. They're going to be in the red zone more. They're going to have scoring opportunities more. I mean, the percentages, you can do percentages for every single thing. The Seattle Seahawks might not be in the red zone nearly as much as these other two teams will be as a part of percentage of the game. So when you're in the red zone more, the opportunities get higher. Fantasy is a lot about opportunities and seeing if your player will be able to cash in those opportunities. That's a big part of it. So I think that if you were just go off of that, Tyreek Hill and Adam Thielen could be up in the top 10 very easily, leapfrogging Mike Evans and Doug Baldwin. I love Mike Evans. I've picked him. I probably won't pick him this year because he just has wronged me too many times. He either gets hurt or he gets thrown off the field or they get into the red zone and he's not there and he gets double covered and Jameis Winston throws it to somebody else. Cameron Brate gets the touchdown for Tampa Bay, but their offense is very up and down as well. So I would honestly leapfrog Tyreek Hill and Adam Thielen because Tyreek Hill also has the added bonus of being a very fast runner. He gets a lot of rushing yards off of fly sweeps and end arounds and whatever it might be. So in the backfield, Andy Reid runs up, and he'll have a rookie quarterback this year. So you'll probably be seeing a lot of that kind of stuff, getting Tyreek Hill involved in the backfield this season for sure. So I definitely would put Tyreek Hill up. I put Tyreek Hill at number 9, Thielen number 10, Evans at 11, Baldwin at 12, and that's also I think being mean to T.Y. Hilton and Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper has a new buddy in his receiving core with Jordy Nelson coming over to the Raiders. I think Amari Cooper is due for a bounce back season. He could definitely be up there in the top 11, 12. I think he could be even number 11 because of his talent, his ability. Stephon Diggs also there. I mean, it's only one team. All these guys are on different teams, except for Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs are the 12th and 15th. They're both on Minnesota, and that's the only team that's represented here twice in the top 20. So, yeah, I mean, that goes to show you how good that offense is already. They're only guys with top 20, and I think one of them, if not both, could be up higher than they are. Like I said, Thielen could be number 10. You can even put Diggs at number 12 and just kind of shovel everybody around. So the receiving core got a lot of options. I mean, I can go back and talk a lot about Michael Thomas. Going back up to the top, I do want to say that Antonio Brown, I think 4th or 5th pick. 4th or 5th pick. He's not going to last farther than that unless you really, really want the rookie running back from last year. You want a Kamara or you want a Kareem Hunt, or you're going to take a chance on an injured guy coming back from injury, David Johnson. I think that AB is just too much of a sure thing to not take number 4, because those top 3 running backs are top 3 for a reason. Then it goes AB as that kind of like that buffer between the top running backs and then the second tier running backs in the league. And I think that AB would be right there, number 4, to be. If you're the 4th pick, that basically I think that means you get Antonio Brown. Unless somebody, the thing about that thing is, unless somebody in the top 3 reaches and be like, oh, you know what, I really want a receiver. There's lots of good running backs. I'll wait until the second round to grab my running back. Because if you're the 4th pick, that means it's a snake draft. You're going to have it depends how many teams you have, obviously, in your league. So you'll probably have like around the 16th pick in the second round if you have a 10, or 17th pick if you have a 10-man league. 17th, you'll have the 17th pick if you have a 10-man league. So that means if you were going to get AB with the first pick, you'd be around, because other receivers are going to go as well. You probably would still be around getting a Christian McCaffrey or a Dalvin Cook or a LaShawn McCoy or a Freeman or Jordan Howard as your running back. So I mean, that's not a bad thing to have as well. So, and then you have Antonio Brown, who's just an absolute machine where he is. Especially if you're in PPR, if you're in PPR. If you're a standard, if you're not in PPR, if you're in standard, maybe stay away, maybe go running back because you just think that's just better bang for your buck than having to worry about AB getting yards after the catch. But if you're in PPR, it's kind of a no-brainer. Go with Antonio Brown with that 4th pick, and I think he honestly is the only receiver who is first round material. Everybody else is second round. Definitely wait till the second round. As I'm looking at the overall rankings here, Antonio Brown. They have ODB 7, OBJ 7. Not a chance. I'd shift up all those running backs, and then honestly, they have Hopkins too. Hopkins, that's true. If Watson is good, Hopkins is good. Hopkins honestly did fine without Watson as well. So that's the only guy. I put Hopkins maybe at number 9 and put Thomas at 10. Maybe so Hopkins and Thomas at the tail end of that thing. But honestly, I like Leonard Fournette, and I like obviously they have Kareem Hunt and Kamara up there as well. But yeah, so you have top 5. Obviously, the only guy is Antonio Brown there in the top 5. Obviously, PPR receivers become a little bit more valuable, and Ezekiel Elliott will drop down. So if you're in PPR, maybe you want to take. There's probably a couple different receivers to take in that top 10. If you really like receivers and you think they're going to get a lot of catches for PPR, obviously it's a totally different, honestly, totally different game, totally different way of thinking about things if you are a PPR player. All right, just looking at the rest of these receivers, is there anybody else that really draws my eye as far as somebody who I think is underranked? There's players on new teams. Obviously, Allen Robertson is on Chicago now. He's 17th. Then they have Juju Smith-Schuster is number 21. I love him. Brandon Cooks now on the Rams. So I mean, there's such a deep receiving core. You could have 5 really, and you can have 3 or 4 really good receivers on your team very easily. As there's a lot. I mean, I'm looking in the top 20, and top 25, honestly, here. There's lots of good receivers out here. I mean, Jarvis Landry is at 25. He's a very good receiver, probably. I mean, not probably, but definitely a good receiver in this league, as he has been for a few years now, obviously in Cleveland. And we'll see who will be throwing him the ball. Probably will drag his draft stock down a little bit. But yeah, you got still Josh Gordon. I mean, you got two Cleveland running backs. Boom, boom, right here. Josh Gordon, Brandon Smith. Brandon Cooks, Golden Tate, Marvin Jones, Larry Fitzgerald, obviously always a great pick. I would never poo-poo somebody for picking Larry Fitzgerald, but especially in PPR, because that guy knows how to run routes, and he knows how to get open, and he knows how to make himself a big target. Honestly, I think Larry Fitzgerald could be one of the most underrated players in fantasy because of the fact that he just puts up points, and he does it a lot. He gets a lot of touches, gets a lot of catches. For PPR, of course, I probably would stay away from him a little more if I was not in PPR, but if I wasn't in PPR, I would draft maybe two receivers. Everybody else would be a running back if I was not in PPR, just to be honest. All right, we'll come back with tight ends and a little bit of talk on defenses after the break. We're rolling through the show today, so stay tuned. Last segment, as we're going to do, like I said, receivers and tight ends and defense, and we'll do that in just a moment. Stay tuned.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, welcome back, GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Final segment of the day today on a Thursday. Final segment of the week of this podcast. Of course, tomorrow I'll be back with the college football edition of the football podcast here on the GSMC Podcast Network. As we're going to get into the tight ends, obviously the number one tight end is Rob Gronkowski. He's coming back for at least one more season with the Patriots. With his buddy Tom Brady, having Tom Brady throw to you is never a bad thing for a player in the NFL, whether it's receiver, tight end, or running back. Obviously, Gronk makes Tom Brady look pretty good. Tom Brady makes Gronk look really good. It's a pretty good, it's a nice little marriage there they've made in New England. Travis Kelce, number 2. Love Travis Kelce. Oh, Travis Kelce. In that Chiefs offense works so well. Andy Reid utilizes him really well in that offense, so you can't go wrong with Travis Kelce if you can pick him. Honestly, I think I'd take him fourth round if I had to. If I get a top running back, if I get a really good running back and a really good running receiver with my first 2 picks, and Travis Kelce is sitting there for me in the 3rd round, I'd snag him because he just is a fan. He's a killer. He's one of these tight ends out there in fantasy football who he can win a week for you. He can win a week for you very easily because he just puts up points, gets in the end zone, just absolute wrecks in the red zone, big weapon in the red zone, and he's going to have a rookie quarterback this season, or not a rookie quarterback, but a first-year starter this season in Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes would love nothing more than having a big, tall target like Travis Kelce to throw to on a daily basis, and or a weekly basis, and he will. So I definitely like Travis Kelce. Zach Ertz, number 3, and then Hunter Henry and Evan Ingram round out the top 5. So I can't disagree too much with that. I like Hunter Henry. He's actually gotten the fact that he's up. I'm not surprised he's up this high in the rankings. Love the fact that he's actually this high in the rankings because I love Hunter Henry. I've had him on my team multiple times. He's a very active, very productive running back, tight end who we don't really know that much about. And he's a guy who can definitely make a difference for your fantasy teams coming this season, because Philip Rivers really likes throwing him the ball. He's a good pass catcher, gets open, finds soft spots. That's the thing about tight ends. You mean you're not really going to have that complicated of routes, but if you know how to find the soft spots in the zone. We just had a tight end retire this offseason. It was Jason Witten retiring, and I mean, if there was somebody better at finding the soft spot in the zone than Jason Witten, you better tell me who he is, because I want to find out. I want to see who that is, because Jason Witten was absolute pro. He was so good at just option routes, kind of reading the defense as he runs his route, and just turning and sitting, putting his chest towards the quarterback and giving a big open target for his quarterback to throw the ball right through the numbers. Him and Tony Romo had such good chemistry, especially on those option routes. Both the guys would know, all right, they both read the defense the exact same way. He's running that option on the top of the route, and he's gonna be wide open for me to pick up the chains. I mean, tight ends can be so dangerous, not only in the red zone, but on third downs as well. Looking on this list as well, Jimmy Graham's number 7. I think he should be higher. I think he could be above Greg Olsen, who's number 6. Greg Olsen has some injury issues, but the thing is, people love Greg Olsen because he's also one of those guys that gets open, and Cam likes to find him. But I think Greg Olsen's always, I know my buddy took Greg Olsen 2 years in a row, and he's gotten hurt both years and kind of hurt. He's definitely kind of wrecked his season a bit a few times. So I like Greg Olsen, but I like Jimmy Graham better, especially with Aaron Rodgers thrown to him. I think Jimmy Graham could be even up in number 5 or number 4 on this list. It's just kind of unproven, at least in that Green Bay offense as of now, but I just love Jimmy Graham. So if I was going to make a new top 10, a new top 5, it'd be Gronkowski, Kelsey, Ertz, probably Graham at number 4, then Henry 5, Ingram 6. I love Kyle Rudolph. He's down at number 9. I like him. I probably put him at 7, in front of Delaney Walker, and then Greg Olsen at number 8. At number 9, and 10 Jordan Reed, who could be up in the top 5 or top 8 or 9 easily. He's right now on the outside looking in at 10. That's just because he gets hurt. Last year he got hurt. I had to have Vernon Davis come in for him, who actually is a really good tight end. Right now it says Colby Fleener's a free agent. They cut Colby Fleener? Benjamin Watson's the tight end for New Orleans? All right, fine. I liked Colby Fleener. The Niners should pick him up. Niners call Colby Fleener. He'll teach George Kittle a lesson, who actually, George Kittle is number 15 right now, which is pretty cool. But, I mean, looking at these tight ends, you don't need more than one tight end, so I don't think Jack Doyle probably, if in a 12-man league, Jack Doyle, obviously these guys get hurt. So I know Jack Doyle was all around the waivers, hot waiver wire pickup last year. So was Tyler Eifert, so was O.J. Howard, so was Eric Ebron, George Kittle. But the fact that you have you look at your top 10 tight ends, and that's pretty much all that's going to get drafted, at least, as a tight end, are these guys right here, and they're actually all pretty darn good as tight end right now. So if Jordan Reed can stay healthy, he's a Pro Bowl tight end. Kyle Rudolph is. I love Kyle Rudolph, especially in that offense with if the safeties really have to help on those deep routes with the two speedy receivers for the Minnesota Vikings, Thielen and Stephon Diggs. I love that seam route. Kyle Rudolph just beats that linebacker right off the ball. One's right in the middle of the field. Both safeties have to go help on the sides especially if they're running a cover 2 defense. I mean, right in the middle of that field will be Kyle Rudolph, and Kirk Cousins knows how to throw to a tight end. He's had Jordan Reed, him and Jordan Reed have made a nice little career for themselves in Washington. Jordan Reed just couldn't stay healthy. Kyle Rudolph, he stays healthy. I think he could be a top 5 fantasy, definitely a top 5 fantasy tight end. Right now he's not, but in rankings, but I think he definitely can get up in that top 5. Love Kyle Rudolph. Always been a fan. I think I think he has a better upside than all the guys ahead of him right now. He has a better upside than Greg Olsen for sure. Maybe not Jimmy Graham, because Jimmy Graham just because he has Aaron Rodgers, but definitely has a bigger upside than Ingram, Henry, Olsen, even Delaney Walker, because of the fact that he plays in such an efficient offense and an offense that will probably be in the red zone quite a bit this season. All right, as we come now, 6 minutes left, I'm just going to take a look at the defenses here. Obviously, we can always talk about kickers as well. Steven Gostkowski's number one kicker right now. Justin Tucker, Greg Zuerlein, Matt Bryant. Can't disagree with that, even though I probably would flip-flop. I put Gostkowski down number 3. Tucker's great. I love Justin Tucker. I think he should be number 1, and Zuerlein number 2, because Zuerlein just has that distance, and that's how you get points out of your kicker. You get points out of your kicker with 40-yard, consistently making 40-yard field goals, and getting an opportunity to have the 50-yarders and making probably about 65-70% of the 50-yarders that there are of the chances that he gets. And Zuerlein, they take a lot of long field goals there in LA because they know he has the big leg and can hit those. So definitely like Greg Zuerlein. Matt Bryant, also a very reliable kicker as well. So I'm just looking at that. As far as defenses, Jags, Vikings, Eagles, Rams, Chargers, that's probably just right on the nose there. I think the Vikings maybe could leapfrog into that number 1 position because their secondary is just so good. I know I just did go through went through everybody's roster and got a really good look at their defenses and how it's kind of evolved and changed. Houston, if they stay healthy, can jump into that top 5. Right now, I think they're 6 because of the issues with injuries. They have obviously J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney, also Whitney Merciless. Their secondary is a little bit worse for wear. That's probably what drags them down a bit. But everybody else, Jacksonville, they're obviously their defense. You can distract if you're an individual defensive player. That's what I think I talked about. Jacksonville's defense. You could literally get a guy at every single position in Jacksonville and just be fine. If you get Gibson at safety, Ramsey at corner, Talvin Smith at linebacker. And who is it? Who was the big guy? Their big guy at defensive end. I can't remember what his name. The guy they got from the Broncos, Jackson. But yeah, I'll think of his name in just a second here. But yeah, no, they have a guy. They have a defensive end. They have a linebacker. They have a safety, and they have a corner who are all top flight guys and they're at their positions, and I would definitely take them in a heartbeat when it comes to those individual defensive players. I mean, looking at they obviously rank the individual defensive players. I think number 1 for IDP. Actually, be interesting to see who they have for number 1 for IDP is. Number 1 for IDP is Luke Kuechly. Obviously, linebackers are a little bit higher premium because it's based off of just points. Obviously, you get points for tackles, so linebackers are always going to be up there. Kuechly, Bobby Wagner, Joey Bosa, Talvin Smith for Jacksonville. So that's definitely definitely a good idea to grab any of those guys if you were looking for IDP. Obviously, you probably know that already because it's kind of obvious. There's tackle machines. Joey Bosa there. Also, sack machine as well there, defensive end. As you also have J.J. Watt. If he can stay healthy, he can get up in that top 5 easily. Not a bad pick. The only thing, so I mean, if you're IDP, you might stay away from drafting J.J. because of his injury issues as well. Calais Campbell was a guy I was thinking about being up there in the front for Jacksonville. One of their defensive linemen definitely can get after the ball as well. Khalil Mack, if he can get back to his big safety years, can get back in the top 10. But just if you're looking at just straight up tackles, Kuechly, obviously tackling machine. C.J. Mosley, tackling machine for Baltimore. J.J. Watt, Landon Collins is going to be a ball hawk in secondary for the Giants. Great safety, Pro Bowl safety. If you're looking for just turnovers, interceptions, that's a great way to get points, clearly. And then as I'm looking through the rest of the list here, there's so many good players on defense in our league this year, coming in this year. But Jadeveon Clowney is 36 because of his injury issues, obviously. But you still have so many good linebackers. Sean Lee, like I said, Khalil Mack already. Who else is there? Alec Ogletree, Quan Alexander, Levante David, both those guys on Tampa Bay. I mean, they're also going to have opportunities. So there's a lot of factors that can be taken into account here when it comes to linebackers. I mean, how much are they going to be on the field? Am I going to have more opportunities to get points because they're on the field more often than not? So you might want to look at team offense before drafting certain individual defensive players as well. So yeah, it's interesting. Interesting looking at that. Lots of different factors to be taken in there. All right, we've come to the end here as we've gone over everything. I think we did kickers, we did team defense, we did individual defense. In this last segment, we talked about tight ends. First segment, we did running back. So I know I kind of blew up everybody. Maybe everybody's what they thought. I just have a tendency to kind of get wary when it comes to guys coming off of injury. Also, second-year guys can lead to question marks as well. So definitely want to take that into account. Receivers, PPR, that's where you're going to go for. Obviously, PPR, you need a receiver anyways, even if you're not on PPR. But as far as your bench, I'd just stock my bench with running backs if I was not on PPR. But receivers, there's so many good receivers out there in our league these days. Same thing with quarterbacks as well. So quarterbacks kind of a dime a dozen as well. You can figure out how you want to go. I think some get a little bit of a bad rap due to the fact that other guys are running quarterbacks and they're more valuable in fantasy, which is a bit true. But I think Russell Wilson, he'll be running a lot this year. He'll be getting a lot of rushing yards this year, I think, because of the fact that he has nobody to throw the ball to. All right, we'll wrap it up right there at the hour mark here of the show, as we have gone through quarterbacks, receivers, tight ends, running backs, everything on your fantasy, what you're going to need for fantasy football. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Until then, everybody enjoy the weekend. Go research for your draft. Never too early to get ready for your draft, as we are getting into the summertime here before we dive right back into the football season and get going for our fantasy league. So I'll be here, of course, until then and through then likely, and we'll just keep doing some good fantasy talk. So like I said, next week I'm going to draw up my own top 50 when it comes regardless of position, and we'll go over that and compare it to the overall rankings here that I did like I did here today, just position by position. This way it'll be more overall rankings based off of who should we draft. I might throw another mock draft in there as well to next week as well. So stay tuned, stick around on the GSMC Podcast Network. Go look at our podcasts regarding fantasy football from earlier in the week, as well as the football podcasts are every day, actually. I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Jesse does Tuesdays and Thursdays, kind of general football talk. I do college football talk on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday shows. So go look up those if you want some more football talk here in the off season. All right, I'm signing off for now. See you guys later. Bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.